And hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode. If not now, when? I am super excited for today's special guest, Deepak Suthar. Wow, what a beautiful name. And first and foremost, let me tell you more about Deepak. He is a serious entrepreneur with 12 startups over 25 years. Oh my goodness. He's also a mentor and credible speaker in business and marketing. He is super passionate about teaching and enable business owner to become business operator to become the business owner. Business owner is the goal. He is a proud business owner of Osteo Strong Austin, as well as the founder of GotFollowUp.com. With everybody, I am super excited. Thank you so much, Deepak, for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wen. You are amazing. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, and thank you. I'm honored to be here, to be one of your guests. I've listened to several of your previous shows, and I'm honored to be here, and can't wait to serve you and your audience.
Yeah, well, we are super excited, Deepak. So let's dive in. Tell us more about you. How does your journey begin?
Man, so my journey, so I'll just keep this from an entrepreneurial standpoint, if that's okay. And it all started when I was a kid. My mom actually was always had this entrepreneurial spirit. She had done so many different things, like MLM stuff, she was selling new skin stuff. She did real estate, and then she ended up selling cars. So she always had this mentality of what's one thing I can do that's new? And the other thing is she always had this heart to serve. Everything that she did, she wanted to create that relationship first before she turned into service. And then she ended up becoming one of the most amazing salespeople on the East Coast, selling cars for Lexus. She was winning awards all over the place because she always led with heart. She always led with service. It wasn't just about the money. It was about serving first, and then the money will come after. So my whole, when I grew up, I kind of grew up with that mindset of connect first, be somebody who cares about others, regardless of who they are, where they came from, how much money they have, what car they're driving. None of that matters. Just serve. And it will come back tenfold. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's just so true. And that's how I live my life. I connect with other people, beautiful people like yourself, and I want to serve. And I have just grown up in that environment of I love people, and I also like to take risks. So both of those two things coupled, it may seem kind of not the same path, but I think that's what kind of gives me an edge, where I love to take risks. I love adrenaline type things, right? I love riding motorcycles, surfing, skydiving, racing cars, all of these things I love to do. But I also love to connect with people. So I kind of have, the crazy side of me and then the loving side of me. But then that's what I'm putting together with my new company, Got Follow Up, is to deliver not only the technology, but also the care and empathy to help people actually succeed. So that's kind of a big overview. How's that for a start?
I did not know your mom is this killer sales businesswoman, and of course, lead with the heart. Not surprised, given it's your mom, but wow, that's incredible. And I'm curious, Deepak, grew up in that environment, seeing your mom succeeding and really living, the heart with the business, and really, being this incredible role model for you, I imagine. Do you always knew that in you that you're going to become a businessman one day as well? Is entrepreneurship or start a business, is that always in your heart? And when do you know?
I would love to say the answer to that is yes, but the answer to that is absolutely not. So I got out of college, like I went to UT.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there for a couple of years, and I left UT my junior year to join my first startup company. And that first startup company was a company called supportkids.com. And I was a young kid. I think I was making like $8 an hour as a tech support person. And I just needed money because I like to have fun. And I wasn't getting any money anywhere else. I'm like, I just need a job. So then I joined this company, and then I had a mentor there. His name is David. And he started teaching me all of these things about technology that didn't even exist in school. I was like, wow, this is really interesting stuff. And I just kept learning and learning. And that company, I didn't know it at the time, but it had an incredible impact on me. And the reason why is because their mission was to get mothers who haven't had child support payments money that they haven't seen in 30 years plus. So it was a private company that supported the government to help get these mothers, these single mothers in most cases, money that they've never seen, that they've been owed for over 30 years. And we were able to collect and deliver that to the moms. And it was just such a service-based organization. And again, I'm like 20 something years old. And I'm like, I don't know why I like this place, but I like it.
Mm-hmm.
But later on, like as I started to learn more about who I was meant to be, and that I needed to serve, it all made sense. I loved that company, not because of the money that I made, because of the impact that I was having on other people.
At the time, you said that you were 20 something years old. You barely know the world. You're part of this UT. And how do you, first of all, having the courage to say, you know what, I'm done here. I'm going to join something that's actually very interesting and fun. And secondly, the job you describe is, it's fascinating, but imagine it's not that much appealing to a 19, 20 years old single man. Right? How does that connect? How does that come together? How do you thought through that choice, and how do you make that choice?
Yeah. So there's a couple of questions in there. So the first thing is like, how do you leave school, and especially in a culture like this, like in an Asian culture, school and education is everything. Right. And you'll learn this about me. I am against all of the social norms when they don't make sense. So in this case, my justification is, hey, I'm learning a skill that's incredibly valuable that isn't being offered at school. And I really love doing it. So why not explore this? Because people live their entire lives trying to get opportunities like this. And one just landed in my lap. And I remember, like, I told my mom and my dad, I'm like, hey, yeah, I think, first I said, I'm going to do both. I'm going to go to school and I'm going to work because I want to make some money. And then it got to the point where I was learning so much. And they're like, hey, we'd love to have you full time, like not part time. And then I'm like, well, I don't know, it's school, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, what do you need? Like, we'll pay for your school. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like that's a great deal. Pay for my school and I get paid to work. So I did that for a couple of months, but then I just started diving into, like, I started doing learning at home on things that, again, weren't available in school. I started buying books and I started learning more and more and more. And I'm like, I'm just going to put school on hold because like, this isn't helping me here. And I see a path of where we are now and like where technology is going to go. And I need to be here. So then I ended up telling them, I'm like, hey, mom, dad, I'm not going to go to school anymore. And they're like, okay, well, we're not going to pay for anything anymore. I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. Because now I'm actually making money. I have a full-time job. And that was the beginning. That was my first kind of jump into the unknown, if you will. But it just really had to do with, I had this opportunity staring at me in the face. And I knew I needed to do it. And what I was doing in school, it wasn't furthering what I wanted at that time.
Do you always this bold? You almost felt there's something that in your heart pulling you forward, even though it's not fitting what conventional suggestion is, or your culture or your family, but yet you follow that voice authentically, which is very a beautiful characteristic. Not anyone can do that. Do you always like that, Deepak?
I try to be. I'll never say that I'm always like anything, but anything that. So when we talk about social norms, right? So there's this in our culture, there is a path for almost every kid when I was growing up. It was, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get good grades, you get a job, and then that's it. That's your path. I didn't want that to be my path. Like when I was growing up, I just wanted to have fun. And so I went to school, I went to high school, I had fun. I did very poorly in high school. Like I did terrible. The only reason I got into college, I got into UT, was I was chasing a girl. I wasn't even planning on going to school. But at the time, that girl was going to UT. And I'm like, okay, I guess I got to get into UT. So then I did really well on my SATs. And that's the only way I got in. It wasn't because of my GPA. And then I went to school at UT and I'm like, hey, I want to have fun. I want to grow. I want to learn. But the things that you start to learn, like you start picking your classes, I'm like, why do I need to know this? Like I'm never going to use chemistry 2 ever in my life. Like why do I need to do this? And that kind of got me started. I didn't know this at the time, but like if I think about where I am today in terms of like thinking about education, I value education and growth more than almost anything on the planet. Like it's super, super important to me. But there's these traditional institutions of learning that I think are more businesses than they are serving students. And when I think about that, I'm like, 4 years in school, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, I think, but 4 years in school versus 4 years diving into a career, depending on what you want to do, there may be an alternate path for you. And there was for me. And it wasn't going and getting this degree, a piece of paper to show it around, say, hey, yeah, I got this degree. Instead, I got 4 years of in-depth experience in a technology that was booming. And I got all these different technical certifications at the same time. And that's what really allowed me propel was the actual experience, not just knowledge, right? Because we know that knowledge is worthless without action. So when you turn that knowledge into action, what's that called? It's called experience.
So Deepak, tell us, let's bring it back to the journey. Now you left school. Now you really dive into, this something that is your first job, but you learn so much. You have an incredible mentor. You're serving. So tell us from there. What happened from there?
So from there, it was just on this path of growth. And I was blessed to be supported by many different mentors at my first company. And there was, my very first manager. He was an incredible human and he taught me. And I think this is for anybody listening to this that's kind of on this path. If you don't have a mentor or a boss that is teaching you on how to get better, that is teaching you on how to be better than they are, find another job. And I was so lucky that the people that were mentoring me, they were always trying to pull me up to do better, to be better. They would never try to, there was never an ego or a significance thing about them. Like they were never trying to keep me underneath them, they're just like, yeah, here, grow, here, grow, here, grow. And from there, I decided to go into another startup company. And I went into another one. And like I kept looking for these mentors that helped me grow to the next level. And some of the companies I was at was for very short because that mentor didn't exist. If you don't love who you report to, find another job. So that was the beginning of the journey. And that was like the beginning of my mindset of, I got super lucky on my first real career, and I had beautiful people that were helping me grow. And then I just kept looking for that every startup company. And then I joined another one. I joined another one. I started one. I joined another one. And I just kept growing. I kept looking for these mentors. And a lot of the supervisors that I've had over the past 25 years, I still communicate with.
Incredible.
Yeah, because they're, I thank them. I'm so grateful that they were a part of my life and that they were willing to reach out a hand and lift me up.
So at this point, Deepak, you move from one to another, follow so many incredible mentors, angels, help you to grow, and you learn so much. So tell us, at what point you realize you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be the mentor and angel for others? Where does that moment come about?
I think it kind of happened on and off throughout the 25 years, because it's like after your first couple of companies, you kind of get this idea in your head. You're like, I'm making other people rich. Like, how do I do this for me? So you kind of have these thoughts of, okay, well, what can I do? What can I start? And the first thing that I did on my own was I started a consulting company, because I had this vast area of knowledge regarding not only technology, but operations and how technology enables any company, not just any specific company, but just because every company needs technology. It's just such an interesting path when you start understanding that what you're doing at one company can be applied to the next. You don't really understand it until you do it. And when I did my first consulting company, I'm like, hey, I can get a bunch of clients. It'll be easy. So then I got a bunch of clients, but there were short-term projects. And I'm like, okay, this is actually really hard, because there's a skill that's required in starting a business that I didn't have at the time, which is sales and marketing. Those are two big gaps I had in my knowledge because I was never exposed to it. And that was many, many moons ago. And I think when you start to understand that, hey, I love the risk of being an entrepreneur. I love doing things on my own and working with a team that you get to direct. You quickly understand every aspect of business, and you quickly understand where your gaps are. And like I said, my biggest gaps were sales and marketing. So then I went back into another startup company that somebody else started. And then I learned more and more. And the beautiful part about being in tech in a startup company is that you get to interface with every single department. And you get to understand how they run that department, because you're using technology to enable that department to run even better. So then I really started focusing on, okay, how do these brilliant marketing people do it? Like, what are they doing? And then I just started breaking down kind of all of the steps that they took. You turn them into role models. And again, I was lucky to be a part of, some really incredible companies that had incredible salespeople, incredible marketing people. So I just kept absorbing and absorbing and absorbing. So the jump off point was other people are getting rich based on what I'm doing for them. How do I do that for myself? And then I took that first leap, and then I climbed back to the boat. I'm like, okay, well, that didn't work. What do I need? What do I need? So it's like self-identification of where are my gaps? And then it's just kind of that back and forth process up until we got to today. So now I've kind of done that back and forth to where now I'm going full force on being an entrepreneur. So I don't think at this point, I'll never say never, but I don't think I'll be part of another, large corporate enterprise.
Mm-hmm. First of all, Deepak, I want to say, it takes a lot of courage, and I imagine somebody who you mentioned like a couple back and forth before you got to this point, but at that moment you realize maybe you have some short or blind spot about marketing or advertising or whatever that piece is for you, and you recognizing that and you say, you know what, I'm going to learn that skill in a different business before I come back to that. Having that courage to admit that, acknowledging that, and you have this beautiful consulting business you're building at the time, that's cool, but did not work fully. I'm going to go back to learn. That takes a lot of courage and humble and humility. Was that just so natural for you? How do you able to just pivot, not take it personally, and decide that as a path before you come back? That's a beautiful pivot.
No, thank you. It does not come naturally at all. And it's still struggling with it today. It's kind of like one of those things like when you're driving somewhere and you're like, hey, I'm going to take this shortcut. And then the shortcut turns out to be a long cut. And then you realize it and you're like, okay, well, I'm already halfway through the shortcut. I know it'll be faster if I turn around and take the regular road, but then you just keep going forward anyway. So it's one of those things that I think are innate in a lot of kind of people that push really hard is that they hate to backtrack. Like people think that even though you took the shortcut and it's going to be a long cut, it's not the shortcut. But people hate to backtrack. They don't want to go back and admit that they're wrong to go and then go back the other path. Mm-hmm. But I don't know when this happened, probably early on, but there was a point to where I started getting this in my head of, I don't really care about what other people think. Right? It's like, if it serves me or my family or the people that I love, I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do, regardless of what other people think. And I think that's one thing that, I'm not perfect in at all, but I really try to stay true to, hey, I'm going to do it if it's number one, it's the right thing to do and it serves me. Mm-hmm. And that allows me to say, hey, look, we've gone down this road. It's the wrong road. Stop, turn around, go back. It's okay to backtrack. And you've heard this before, right? Sometimes you have to take 2 steps back to take 5 steps forward. Mm-hmm. But I was and again, I still do this. I still get stuck on, okay, well, we're already halfway down this path. Why don't we just finish it? Mm-hmm. The whole sunk cost thing. Right. It's a fallacy. Mm-hmm. If it's a sunk cost, stop doing it. Turn around. Come up with a new strategy. Mm-hmm. What you're doing is not working. So I constantly have to tell myself that. But yeah, it's not something I was born with by any chance.
I think that, having that courage, having that humility, and truly looking at things as it is, not better than this, neither worse than it is, and actually as it is, and then reset, make a new decision, maybe it's a new strategy or pivot, turn around or whatever decide you need to do, and actually looking at as it is and then move forward. I think that is one of your superpower that enable you to become who you are today and not take things personally, not worry about what people think, and actually do what works best for you and your family at the moment. So I think that's incredible and admirable. So let's talk about today, Deepak. Tell me about today. I know you have a lot going on, whether it is gut follow-up or osteotrauma. So tell us more about today. What does that look like for you?
So from a professional standpoint, I've got 2 focuses. One is OsteoStrong Austin, and the other is a software company that, oddly enough, like now that we're having this conversation, is based on sales and marketing. So I created a company based on sales and marketing, which was one of the biggest gaps that I had when I first started. So I never really put those two together. So thank you for kind of connecting these dots for me.
Isn't it beautiful that you said that was your blind spot and now almost become your superpower?
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah. So that's super duper interesting to me that now that you've helped me connect those dots. Because I think a lot of folks, that want to be entrepreneurs, that want to join a startup company, I believe my hallucination is that they start out as artists, right? They start out as, hey, I'm really good at this one thing, and I want to turn this into a business. Or I'm really passionate about this one thing, and I'm going to turn this into a successful business. The challenge with that is, like I found out when I first jumped into entrepreneurship, is most people don't understand that there are blind spots. They're like, hey, I'm really good at what I do, so therefore I'm going to make a lot of money. But that's not how businesses work, right? Businesses are multifaceted, right? You have to look at it holistically from not just your skill, but you also have to understand where your gaps are. You have to understand what makes a successful business. And I've learned a ton over the past 25 years. And then in just the last 5 years, I've done a ton of personal development in the realm of, Tony Robbins, Keith Cunningham. These folks have taught me an incredible amount about business and looking at it from not your seat, but looking at it from somebody else's seat. Because that's really the way that you can find these blind spots. So today, this one of the first things that I wanted to do when I got out of the corporate world was I wanted to do something that was going to make a difference. And that first business that I launched was OsteoStrong Austin. So this is a company, it's a franchise that helps transform people's lives. It actually helps save people's lives because it solves a deadly disease called osteoporosis. And osteoporosis is deadlier than breast cancer, but nobody's talking about it. So I ran into this at a seminar. I met the folks, the inventor of this equipment, and he started telling me about these machines. And he's like, yeah, I developed this stuff to save my mom's life. And I'm like, okay, you've got my ear. I'm a mama's boy, so tell me more. And he starts telling me about, hey, osteoporosis, this happens to many, 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 many people. They don't really know it until it's too late. Everybody starts losing bone density after the age of 30. And he's like, now my mom is, I guess at this point, almost 84, 83 years old. And she's got the bone density of a 30-year-old woman. And that's remarkable.
Wow.
So I'm like, hey, my mom has osteopenia. She has fibromyalgia. She has all of these different ailments. And he's like, yeah, OsteoStrong takes care of all of those things. It helps fix the root problems of all of those things. So you can live life on your terms. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And then he's like, yeah, and you only need to do it once a week. And it takes about 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, now this sounds like complete snake oil. I don't quite believe it, but I wanted to believe it. So then I started doing research. And then I started diving into the research that they provided. 3 months later, I'm convinced, because not only dove in the research, but I started talking to other owners. I started talking to members that were there for 2-3 years. And that's when I launched that company. So I got out of tech and I went into a retail wellness center, which seems crazy, but I was burnt out. I didn't want to do tech anymore. I'd been doing it for 25 years. I was at the top of my game.
Mhm.
I was making more money than I've ever made before,
Mhm.
but I was getting burnt out.
Mhm.
So then I opened OsteoStrong up to help people, to serve people. Because back to when the beginning of this conversation, I thought about what was one of the best jobs that I ever had. What did I love about it? And it was supportkids.com
Mhm.
because of the mission, because of the impact that they were having.
Mhm.
And then I've replicated what happened in that company. I'm doing that now with OsteoStrong, which is amazing because I have helped thousands of people live better, fuller lives without pain,
Mhm.
which has just been amazing. So that is my passion,
Mhm.
is serving people. And with my other company, Got Follow Up, I get to have fun because now I've took everything that I learned over the past 3 years at OsteoStrong and using my technology operations experience, I've combined it with
Mhm.
the sales and marketing, and I created Got Follow Up. So Got Follow Up is solving this problem of, hey, everybody knows that you should consistently follow up with your prospects, with your members, with your partners, but nobody ever does it.
Mhm.
They keep spending more money on Google ads. They keep spending more money on Facebook ads. They keep spending more money on advertising
Mhm.
when they're sitting on a mountain of people that they've already connected with,
Mhm.
that already know who you are, that already trust you. So why aren't you continuing to call them, to email them, to text them, to send them video texts?
Mhm.
Why isn't that happening? It's because the resources don't exist, especially in companies that are like, between 300 and half a million in revenue and above.
Mhm.
They don't have a team to be able to call these people to do that follow up.
Mhm.
And we were running into the same issue at OsteoStrong. So I built this to solve my problem first.
Mhm. Mhm.
And for all your entrepreneurs out there that are listening to this, I built this to solve a specific problem that I had. So if you're thinking about building something, make sure you're building something that solves a problem that people have, even if it's yourself. So I started with me. So I eat my own dog food. So everything that I've built, we've automated the entire follow up process. So it
Mhm.
makes it simple for smaller companies that don't have a sales and marketing team to consistently follow up with people, to create new sales appointments. So that was the whole gist of how Got Follow Up got put together. And
Mhm.
now that company is starting to take off.
Mhm.
The beautiful part about it is that I keep getting text messages and Facebook messages from my clients, and they're like, "Hey, just wanted to tell you, I got 6 new sales this last week, and thank you so much for the service that you're providing." And it's like, I love those messages because one, I didn't ask for it. I should be asking for it, but I didn't ask for it because I'm serving right now. I want to serve, and it's working. And they're just so grateful that I get these messages, and that makes me feel even better. Like it just
Mhm.
lights a fire underneath me to like continue to deliver.
Okay.
And I love it.
So tell us more. Now you get everyone so excited. Tell us more about Golf Follow Up. Who is that for? What function, what services do you provide? Is it for only business owner, or how do you articulate that?
Yeah. So the simplest way that we articulate it is that we've developed this software primarily for service-based businesses that are appointment based.
Mm.
So if you are a law firm, if you are an accounting firm, if you do mortgages, if you are a broker, if you run a wellness center, a dentist, a doctor, if you do any type of service that is based on appointments, This solution, what we do is we tailor the software based on your business process. So most people do it the other way around. Like they go and they find a solution online and then they change their business process to fit the software. I think that's a broken model. Software is so agile today that you should be bending the software to fit your process, not bending your process to fit the software. And we're able to do that inside of a week. So while people are spending, 6 figures on like Salesforce implementations, we can do it at like a tenth of the cost in a fraction of the time.
Wow, Deepak, first of all, thank you for that full heart, that beautiful passion, and that's beautiful, beautiful service mind leadership, which I really adore. And now, I'm curious, back to you, Deepak. Now, 20 years making 12 startups and many, many up and downs. I'm curious, today, what's your definition of success? And do you think you are successful with that?
I think my definition of success is just happiness. I think anybody, regardless of, again, where you live, how much you make, what things and stuff you have, if you don't have this mindset of, I'm grateful for everything I have, you can always be happy. You can always be grateful because there's always somebody else that would kill to be in your shoes.
Yeah.
There's always somebody else. So for me, what does success look like is I'm always in that grateful state. Like for me, that's true success because I have 100% control over that.
Speaking about gratitude and grateful, I think it's so beautiful, but oftentimes I think people probably think, wow, it's easy for you to say you get everything right now. Life is so beautiful. But what about those moments when maybe things is not as beautiful, maybe things is not as perfect? How would you still remain that state? Do you have a moment of time where things are so hard, things are so challenging, and how do you still able to, kind of pivot and really take a step back and really looking at life still with a gratitude mind?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So experience and wisdom. In the beginning, when you run into these situations, even when you're a kid, right? And these are things that like I try to institute this knowledge transfer to my kids is that when you run into something that is an incredibly difficult situation, you have to look at the bright side. You have to find the silver lining. You have to find the meaning. You have to, and as Tony would say, you have to, like, life is happening for you, not to you. So what is happening for you? It's another way of finding the silver lining. So there's always something there. So do I get in moments of, dropping F-bombs and just swearing all over the place? Yeah, of course. But I think the key is that I don't live there. Like I'll have that moment and then I'll drop back into a resourcefulness state of, okay, what do I need to do? What needs to happen right now? Because no matter what situation you are in, regardless of how bad it is, it could be 10 times worse.
I'm curious, if you will go back time, do you have a piece of advice or biggest thing that you wish you self know when you were 20 or 25, 30 years old?
Yeah. And it's not, I would go back even further than that, which is kind of like my mission, in the future, which is I want to shift what education looks like for kids. So do I have insight for my 25-year-old self? Absolutely. But I think it's late. I think the insight needs to start around 10 to 12 years old.
Wow.
And I think these insights are, I think the biggest thing that holds people back, me included, is what we call identity. And identity is formed at such an early age that it can be triggered on like some random person making one sentence that can change your life when you're 10 years old. Like, hey, yeah, you're not good at basketball. You shouldn't do that. You should play soccer. And this guy has no authority, nothing, just some random person making this random statement. And then people lock that into their identity and they will live that for the rest of their life. So I think this concept of having a fluid identity needs to be taught. Don't ever get stuck in any way of thinking, no matter how true you think it is. Be open. You know, as Bruce Lee was one of my favorite people on the planet, he has a saying, be like water. Water can crash, water can flow, water can fit into a cup. Be like water. And I didn't know it at the time, but he's talking about identity. Your identity needs to be fluid. Anytime that you come up and you say, I am this, or I am not this, or I will never do this, blah, 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 blah. Those are all identity defining statements. So just be really careful of using the word always, never, I am X, because those all define who you are as an identity. And just like we were talking about earlier, when people go down a path, even though it's the wrong path, they will keep going because they want to maintain their identity of not being wrong. You need to be able to be fluid.
That is so beautiful. Probably one of the best advice I ever heard. This is wow. So thank you, Deepak. That is very thoughtful and really beautiful. And I'm curious, Deepak, today, what inspired you? What drives you today? And what legacy you want to leave behind?
So I think what drives me today is seeing my kids succeed. Selfishly, I want to see them succeed. And I want to put them in the absolute best position to do that. So the things that I do today are to help further that mission. And I don't know if it's just a parental thing or what. And I'm sure every parent has some form of this in them that they want to see their kids succeed. But I'm putting myself into positions to where normal people wouldn't do to help them succeed. Like, for example, today we enrolled them into a different type of school, which is entrepreneurial and technology driven, that is 45 minutes away from where we live. So that's something that, is going to stretch me and my wife to figure out how to drive 45 minutes, take them to school, pick them up because they can't drive. There's no bus that goes there. But as I said earlier, I value education massively. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, if we're going to invest in our kids' education, why wait until college to spend money on education? Why not start that process now? Because this is when who they are gets shaped. Is when you're a kid. Who you were as a kid is how you turned out as an adult. All the experiences that you have lead into who you become. So why not give them that opportunity now? So I'm going to sacrifice now for them because they are my legacy.
Wow.
And I not only want to do that for my kids, but I want to do that for all kids. Like, I want to shift education on its head to teach them what's really important in life.
What's really important in life?
Life skills. It's not just about arithmetic. It's not just about language arts. It's not just about history. It's about being emotionally competent, emotionally fit.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being in integrity. It's about financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the value of relationships,
Mm-hmm.
the value of family.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that are kind of touched on in school,
Mm-hmm.
but I would argue that they're the most important things in life, and they need more focus.
My last question for you is, what is one single or more piece of advice that you want to share with other entrepreneurs, maybe who just like you, maybe just in the beginning of the process, maybe right now in the middle of going back and forth, maybe is in the midst of, figure out how to scale. What would you tell her or him right now while watching you?
I would ask a question. And the question would be, what are you prepared to sacrifice to get what you really want? You can have almost anything in this world if you are willing to sacrifice. So that's the question. What are you willing to sacrifice? Is it your time? Is it your money? Is it what is it? Because you can gain the skills to do almost anything. You have access to almost every bit of information on the planet at your fingertips 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a resource problem. You have access to it. But what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice Netflix? Are you willing to sacrifice going downtown 5 nights a week? What are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? Because at the end of the day, if you ask yourself this question, here's another question is, why haven't I already gotten what I want? Truly. Why haven't I achieved what I want to achieve? What really is holding me back? And if you're honest with yourself, you're going to identify some gaps. And those are the things that you want to go and crush. You want to remedy that. You want to learn about it. You want to study it. You want to find a role model. But truly ask yourself those questions, because those are the things that are holding you back. Because you have the knowledge, or at least you have access to the knowledge. But are you willing to sacrifice the time, the effort, the energy that it's going to take to get to your goal?
So beautiful. I love what you said. It's not what I expected, but in the most beautiful way I can ever imagine. It's about making a conscious choice. It's about looking at yourself, looking at where you are, and truthfully, authentically looking at the gap and seeing how could you really remedy that, which is so beautiful. And once again, Deepak, I want to say thank you. This is such a powerful and beautiful conversation. I love that you're not only such a successful entrepreneur, just the dad, a husband, all the things all around, but you're just so heart-centered, so grounded, and just so truthful, and such a beautiful human being. So I am just so honored for you taking the time to share your beautiful wisdoms. And I hope everybody who is staying tuned today and also enjoy as much as I did. And thank you everybody again for tuning in. I really appreciate every single one of you. I will see you all next week. Bye everybody.
See ya.